These are 3 obscure aesthetics that you might not know about. Gen X Corporate Cyber. Gen X Corporate Cyber was a short-lived marketing aesthetic that emerged during the early 90s. The aesthetic was primarily used by companies that were associated with telecommunications, multimedia, and technology. Companies wanted to use this aesthetic in order to appear more modern and/or futuristic. The visual style of Gen X Corporate Cyber is taken from a mix of grunge, 90s wave flyers, and computer-generated April Grayman style graphics. The main key visuals of the aesthetic is heavily saturated colors, the FF meta and template gothic fonts, and warped and blurred imagery that is layered on top of each other in Photoshop. The aesthetic was only really relevant during the 90s and would eventually fade away from the spotlight in the 2000s. The curly girly aesthetic. Now for this aesthetic, I couldn't find that much information about it, but the information that I did find states that curly girly was a playful aesthetic that was marketed towards young girls during the late 90s to mid 2000s. The aesthetic drew heavy inspiration from the Groovival and the McBling aesthetics, and it was essentially a kidified version of both, heavily marketed towards young girls and tweens. The aesthetic appeared in both children's toys, clothing stores, and even children's books that were aimed at young girls. The visuals of the curly girly aesthetic were very ornate and playful with frilly designs, with some pop culture references and a heavy usage of the colors pink and purple. The factory Pomo aesthetic. Now, just like curly girly, there isn't a lot of information about this aesthetic, but the information that I do know states that the aesthetic emerged during the late 80s. The emergence of this aesthetic was caused by the postmodernist design explosion in the late 80s that was launched by the Memphis Milano group. The visuals of this aesthetic borrows heavily from the Bauhaus and Constructivism art movements. Factory Pomo imagery heavily relied on basic geometry and often depicted simplified and 2D depictions of industrial elements such as gears and metal ridging. The factory Pomo aesthetic could be found on album covers, packaging, logos, stores, and even places like the LA Gear Exhibition. Do you guys like any of these aesthetics? And if so, which one is your favorite?